find the power and the freedom and just completely being yourself everywhere, including online, it is incredibly difficult. And I think more so for women, and more so for women of color. Because, as you mentioned, conditioning kind of teaches you that that's dangerous to do. And especially in this political climate, it's literally dangerous to do in some cases, right? So, how do you find the strength to do that, anyways?
That's such a great way to start a podcast, with a laugh. Carrolee, welcome to Resilient Entrepreneurs Podcast. We're so glad to have you here today, and we can't wait to have a great conversation about personal branding, about podcasting, about social media, about resilience, and about all kinds of things, entrepreneur and visibility. So thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm very excited to talk about all the things. Literally, I feel like we could talk about anything at this point.
Yeah, well, let's bring on all the things. And let's start with our first question, which is, if I were to hand you a magic wand today, what would you change in the world?
If I had to change one thing, if I had a magic wand and change one thing in the world, it would be to end homelessness. And this is super near and dear to my heart because I worked for a few years in the homelessness and housing, like nonprofit space, both in like public policy kind of action advocacy role, and then also in an actual shelter, and experiencing the resiliency of a lot of these folks, and learning really what caused their situation, for them to be unhoused. And a lot of times we kind of think about the folks that are homeless as drug addicts or people who are just kind of quote unquote lazy, if we want to get like really ignorant. But what I found is these are just people who lost their jobs or had a mental break because they were working like crazy and were trying to kind of live the American dream and didn't know that they had schizophrenia or any kind of thing like that. And then their family disowned them. And it's just like, it reminded me that at any point, any of us is susceptible to that situation. And so if I had a magic wand, it would be to end that experience, and that everyone who is currently living on the street who wants to be in a home would have the opportunity to call a place home. Yeah.
I can see how much that means to you. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. And it's such an important topic. It's something that I think we can be inclined to kind of turn a blind eye to. If it's not happening to us, then it's maybe not happening, or that's them, but this is me. That will never happen to me. And yet, perhaps the better way to look at it is, there for the grace of God go I.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that it's hard for me to admit this sometimes to myself, but it was something I had to recognize. I lived in Boston, a fairly large city, for most of my life. And I had never really noticed the people who were curled up in the corner in sleeping bags or on cardboard boxes, while I was walking to the train station trying to go to work. I had my own thing that I was doing, trying to get to here, there, wherever. I just didn't see them. I knew that they existed in idea, but I never really took the time to see faces or slow down to even kind of have a conversation. And then I got into the space, and you can't unsee once you see, and I mean really see. And so, yeah, even though I haven't worked in that space in 7, 8 years, it's still something like I see, can't unsee it.
And I think so many of us do unsee it because there's a fear of, it could be any of us, or it could be someone we love, or it could be the possibility is almost something you don't want to face.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're so afraid of that potential being yours. And I think this relates so much to entrepreneurship, because of course that's, our audience listening, right? They're entrepreneurs or wantrepreneurs, right? And that's a big part of the risk of being an entrepreneur, that hold people back, right? From taking that leap into the unknown, where you could risk your life savings.
Yeah.
You could fail a business. You couldn't go bankrupt. It's not the safe route. And yet we still do it. But I think it does is a factor of holding a lot of people back, is because of all the fear of the potential. Because you're right, it could be. And it could be one bad decision. It could be one terrible accident that you didn't have insurance to cover. Right? The possibilities are there, and it's scary, but it's important to recognize. And, even, I'm in Bermuda. It's island paradise. We had a lovely conversation before that we hit record about us both being island girls, right?
Yeah.
We know like that it's paradise, but on the other side, just behind a very thin curtain, it's not paradise for a lot of people. So I love that that's something that you want to draw attention to. And we've just drawn all of our listeners' attention to today. So thank you for sharing that, really.
Absolutely. Glad to.
So tell us, so let's just shift into business topics a little bit. Tell us a little about what you do and how you help people. And also you gave a little secret away that you're potentially starting a podcast in the new year. So yeah, fill us in.
I am definitely starting a podcast in the the new year. So I love kind of talking about what I do by taking anyone who's listening on a journey, and that is storytelling. I've been obsessed with storytelling since I was a little kid, and I remember sitting around. And Laura, maybe you kind of know this experience as well. When there isn't TV, there isn't like all these distractions, families would just kind of sit around and you would just joke around each other. They'll start telling stories. We call them duppy stories, which I didn't like. They were scary stories. But like those things really drew you in. And I learned the power of storytelling from there. And then when I moved to the United States in this new culture, this new world, I really dove into storytelling here, whether it was movies, books, music, anything that helped me to understand this culture. I wanted to like really kind of eat it all in, right? And that again just kept feeding my obsession with storytelling. So I graduated with a degree in communications after switching my major from English. So writing, storytelling, all of the things have been with me for a long time. But then I graduated in the middle of the recession and I had to be responsible. So I took a project management job at McKesson and worked there for a while. And honestly, for the next 10 years, I was working in all of these non-creative jobs. I wasn't necessarily doing my passion, but on the side, I was building a thriving graphic design business. And eventually, I didn't really understand entrepreneurship because we just talked about entrepreneurship potentially being kind of scary. And you're looking at people like, you're doing that on purpose? like, uh, all I saw were people who were just kind of miserable, broke, all the things. And I was like, I want no parts. I'll keep my job. Thank you. But I was building this thing on the side that I had like such a passion for. And I remember 2015, I had the idea of like, what if I could actually do this full time? Like help people tell stories full time. And I was like, nah, who would pay me to do that? That was the seed. And only a few years later, pandemic hits, I get laid off. And as I'm trying to find a job, I'm getting more and more people asking like, hey, you do websites, right? You do graphic design, right? Can you just help me? I got laid off too, and I'm starting my business. And so I end up moving across the country from Boston to Texas to where I live now in North Texas, and decided to go all in just on the strength of seeing the market needing what I knew that I really wanted to do. That thing that I said was impossible just a few years before that. Built that business from like an idea to a multi-six-figure business from an air mattress in an apartment when I moved down with no money. And in building that dream business, I also felt like I built myself into a prison, because as much as I loved graphic design, I loved creative storytelling, I became a like victim of everyone else but me, meaning I was paying everyone else but me. I was giving everybody else time off but me. I was doing all of these things. And I got burnt out. And I ended up letting go all of my employees, except for one, and paid him for 3 months just to kind of not take another job. And did a bunch of research about what do people actually want, and how does it connect to what I would want to do in a business. And cut to, I found podcast guesting because I had been doing it as a way to grow my business, the first business that I built, because I genuinely enjoy talking to people and I really don't like social media. So, in recognizing that and started talking to other people, and they kept telling me the same thing, but it's like, how do we get visibility? How do we actually get like clients that are qualified without doing the whole social media hamster wheel thing? And so I built this super simple offer from my own experience. Hey, you can go on other people's podcasts, not only tell your story, but talk about your expertise, really get in front of the folks that already are interested in what you do because they clicked on your episode to listen to it, and be able to build that relationship, shorten the know, like, and trust between them. And from there, we've found that there's a deeper thing that I'm now interested in. That was the original part of my business. I get people booked on podcasts, people, specifically experts, booked on podcasts that are right fit for them. Here's the thing that I found that I really love. A lot of times, if you're an expert, you can talk about the thing that you love to do for like 3 hours, zero breaths being taken. Like, you just love what you do, right? But you're not talking about yourself. You're talking about projects, you're talking about companies. A lot of times it's not based in that like real connection space. It's just, here's my resume. And who wants to listen to that? Right? And so what I love to do is help these incredibly brilliant people see the power in their own stories, not just in what they do, not just in the expertise they have, but in what makes them unique. Right? And I used to get the like, I don't know what I would talk about for 45 minutes if I'm not going to talk about this. And I'm like, well, did you make it out of grad school? Yes. Did you make it out of med school? Yes. How many people have actually done that?
Right.
What were your experiences going through that? And so I genuinely love to help people tell their own unique, valuable stories. And I think that's the reason why I connected with you guys, because I feel like you have that same passion as well. So, yes, like technically I help people get on podcasts, but really what I love doing is like helping them tap into that like extra special piece of their story that really bridges the trust gap by connecting people to people and soul to soul.
Yes, because people don't care what you do, they care why you do it.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to the why fast because of the who you are, usually that's why we have created a business, because
Yeah.
of some reason. And
Yep.
therein lies the story that brings the connection.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. We're big, proponents of podcast guesting too.
Yeah.
We want to recommend more and more people to get on podcasts, to get talking about themselves, to share their stories and connect, because people buy from people.
Yeah.
Right? People's personal social media accounts do so much better than their business social media accounts will ever do. You can do all the ads you want in the world and spend millions of dollars on ad spend for your business, or you can get on podcasts and talk about yourself, and you'll probably have more impact getting on a podcast talking about yourself.
Yeah. There's a reason why companies with founders that have really strong personal brands do very, very well, because it bleeds from someone finding that founder, liking that founder, understanding their story, seeing themselves in that founder, being inspired by that founder, being challenged by that founder, having ooh, I didn't know that I thought this way. by and then through them going through the rabbit hole of all the things, find the business, right? Or hearing from the founder, hey, I have this business that does this thing. It's like, oh wow, I have that challenge too. I'd love to kind of hear more about that company. Those are the businesses that are doing the best, and there's a reason for that.
Tell us more about that reason. In your view, how do you explain that to your clients?
Well, Laura just said it. People buy from people. I think that your business is only as strong as your strongest message. And a lot of times, your strongest message is the story being told by the person that's closest to the purpose or the mission of the business. And a lot of times, especially for smaller businesses, that's the founder's story,
Mhm.
right? And yes, someone in sales could have a really powerful reason why they're working in the company, and that could help you on a sales call. But I promise you, there is nothing like you finding a company and you learning more about the founder of the company of like, oh, they care about sustainability as well. Oh, this person worked in this industry and had the same experience that I did. And because of that, like they started this whole thing here. I feel seen. And when people feel seen and heard, there's a wall that comes down because we are so used to being sold a bag of goods on the internet.
Yeah.
When you can cut through the mess and get to a real connection of like, no, I actually believe you, then selling becomes easier. And so when the founder already does that for the brand, for the business, it makes it easier for the sales to close because there is already that connection that happens. And that's why I don't really fancy social media marketing as anything other than like one of instead of the only or the main, because it's really hard, especially now, especially with AI content kind of being everywhere. It's really hard for you to gain the amount of time that it will take for someone to really develop that deep amount of trust to then purchase something. And I'm not talking about a product that costs $5. Most of the people that are listening to this are probably service providers. And if you're like charging thousands and thousands of dollars for someone to part with $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, they're going to have to trust you and they're going to take time. And you want them to go through that process as quickly as possible. And social media, because it's just kind of based around short form content for the most part, it's harder to do that. And it takes a longer to do that. It's not impossible. You know, I've closed $21,000 on one LinkedIn post. Yes,
Nice.
but that was one
Yeah.
LinkedIn post, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't really try to do that on a consistent basis. It just happens when it happens. That's not a strategy.
Yeah.
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is
Yeah.
not a strategy. That's my favorite line, Vicky. You're
Oh,
right.
really?
So one of the things that we like to encourage the people that we work with and speak to who say, "Oh, I love your podcast. I'm going to start a podcast myself," and we do love to encourage them. Slow down there. Guest on as many podcasts as you can before you start thinking about creating your own. What's your view on that, Carrolee?
Hey there, sorry for the interruption, but if you're a woman entrepreneur ready to raise your profile, expand your reach, and start being seen as the expert you already are, we have a challenge for you. Vicky and I have created a free guide called the LinkedIn to Latte Method. Check it out in the link below. It's designed especially for women who are done playing small and are ready to attract opportunities, clients, and increase your visibility. No tech overwhelm, no awkward call DMs, just clear, authentic strategy that works. So download the free LinkedIn to Latte guide below, take the challenge, and start turning your brilliance into real opportunities. Now, back to the episode.
Well, of course, I agree. One of the things that I believe is that as you become a better guest, it will make you a better host because you will get on podcasts that have hosts that are really chatty and you might get like 5 words in and you're like, okay, don't want to be that. Right. You might get on a podcast where the hosts have like very specific questions and like that's what you get asked and that's what it is. Other hosts where it's like just free, whatever, you have no idea what's happening. And it's like you get to decide, okay, what kind of host do I want to be? And in doing that, you're actually training yourself to become a better host just simply by being in those spaces. I also believe that as you podcast guest, you become clearer in what your message is, what your aim for your new podcast could and should be. And it gives you an idea of like, okay, I use this messaging on this podcast. How did I feel about that? How did I feel when I had that conversation? What were the reactions from the host? Were they like, ooh, or like crickets? What were you can really test things out. And you can also use podcast guesting as a promo tool for your new podcast, which I will shamelessly plug. The Currency of Visibility podcast is launching in January 2026. Whenever you're listening to this, it's coming up. So I think that's also a huge thing for people who's like, don't launch to crickets. I know we were obsessed with doing that and then getting upset and defeating and then never record again. Don't launch to crickets.
Yeah. And know that podcasting is like a long game, right? It's not,
Yes.
yeah. It takes a long time to build an audience and to build the right audience and then it's okay. But the longevity is what's beautiful because it
Mhm.
can last a really, really long time and have impact for a really long time. Like Vicky and I did a radio show like back in like 2020, 2021, and I'm still seeing episodes pop up of that like on podcast platforms like all of a sudden it's in the top 200 list. I'm like, how did that get there? So,
Yeah.
it can still come back and live for a long time and set you up as an expert because something you've shared is continuously resonating. So it's a
Yeah.
great thing. Yeah, it's a really good thing. But definitely being the host is a different game than being a
It is.
guest.
It is.
But I like what you said too about, well, here's what I'm thinking. The long form content of a podcast can also be clipped to short form content
Yes.
for social media. That's a message I think a lot more people need to understand. There's so much value in that. And I always say I'm a graphic designer too. So for me, I always want to do the biggest beast first. So if I ever get a big project with lots of moving parts, I'm like, give me the biggest thing, give me the annual report, give me the whatever it is, the magazine, the whatever, the biggest part. And then I'll chunk that down into
Yeah.
all the other smaller pieces we want down to a social media post.
Mhm.
We always start with the big and chunk it down to small. It makes everything flow so easy and it's far less work because it's hard coming up with 30 topics to talk about for a minute over and over again on social media, right? It's hard to put that camera in your face and talk to it, but it's easy to do this, to show up and have a great conversation about something you're passionate about. This is easy.
Yeah. And I think if you have it in your mind about, okay, how am I going to answer this question? The way that I answer this question, this is going to be a clip. I already know. Okay, how I describe what I do, clip. Not necessarily for this. I literally have done the same thing a lot, right? But you would clip certain things as you're answering questions that are new, or you're answering. My favorite are when podcast hosts inadvertently ask me a question that is a potential objection from a prospect, because the answer that I give, clip, and that becomes not only a social media post, but I actually start sending those clips as part of our email drip when you schedule for a sales conversation with us. So I'm
Nice.
already handling objections using a podcast interview as part of my sales process. So it's not just social media content.
This is strategic podcast guesting. I love it. I love it. And what you raised there about sales conversations, and you've said that before as well, is that the sales conversation is just the cap on the top. It's the cherry on top. It's the person's already sold themselves. They know they want to work with you before you get to the sales conversation. That's the sweet spot. Then the sales conversation is just the logistics. Like, fantastic, really excited to work with you. Here's how it's going to go.
Yeah, a friend of mine calls her sales conversations decision conversations.
I like that.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that on a podcast. Now it's gonna be like, ooh, everyone taking her idea. But it's a really good idea because, yeah, you do want to have a process. For us, there are 2 different emails that get sent out. And I'm actually even refining that more to where on the page that someone goes and schedules on the calendar and fills out our little form, under that are links to things, including podcast interviews that I've had talking about the power of podcast guesting, including blog posts that we have on our website talking about, the ROI that's possible through podcast guesting. So you're already addressing those objections like beforehand. So even if you miss the emails, like it's right there as you're scheduling your call. Yeah. So by the time you get to talk to me, it should not be the first time that you're knowing exactly what we do or how much it costs. I
Yeah.
want you to come fully, aware of all the things so we can have a genuine conversation about like, okay, what does this look like? Right?
Yeah. And that takes
Lovely.
all the ick out of sales
Yeah.
because nobody likes sales. It feels icky. It feels used car salesman. People don't want to be that. So they
Yeah.
avoid it. Right. And they're just like, I'm just going to throw everything up on my website and hope somebody clicks a button and pays me.
Yeah. Again, not a strategy. It's
Not a good one.
it's not a strategy, like, especially now. Yeah, I think for me, one of the biggest things and why I've done that with our sales strategy or our process is I value my time a lot more now.
Mm.
And I value the people that are trying to get help. I value their time. And so that's even why we have different tiers of how we can work with people, a done for you situation versus done with you. And for Black Friday, we're actually launching digital products so people can literally do all the things DIY if they want to. All of those types of people will get different engagements with me as the CEO, if that makes sense. So if you answer the question that you're not able to invest at a certain level on our questionnaire, it doesn't mean that you get ignored. And it doesn't mean that I just kind of like, well, later for you. If you schedule a meeting, I will remove it and give you a phone call. And in that phone call, I will say, hey, I know that you're not able to kind of afford our services right now. And I totally get that. Here is what's possible. And here's what I think might work for you. After kind of hearing what their goals are, where they're at in business, all the things, we have a real like mini strategy call because I care about people. Right. But I'm not going to spend an hour on a sales call with someone who cannot afford my services. I can either hit it from the front end and kind of send you in the places that make the most sense. Like, hey, do you want to do like a VIP day? Do you want to do like a quick, just podcast interview prep with me? We can do one session so you can record that and then just play that over whenever you're going back to podcasts. Like, there's so many different ways for me to help someone that doesn't include a 6-month engagement if they're not there yet.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's such good advice for entrepreneurs out there is to figure out where the tiers are in your business. Can you have a big signature offer? And then how do you break that down into different tiers so that you can help a lot of people in a lot of different ways? And the people who might take that lower tier at the very beginning may end up being a big VIP client later because you've helped them grow their business and they're going to remember you and appreciate you and also possibly become one of your biggest brand ambassadors out there.
Those are my favorite stories. I don't know about you guys, but like, I love it when someone comes in. Like we had one particular person, she's a B2B consultant, came in super excited. I remember on our sales call, she said verbatim, I want to become your star pupil. I want it because she saw that I was using another client as like my testimonial video, like all over the place. Because there's another thing, make sure that you have your testimonials all over. And she's like, yeah, I want to be her. Like, that's my goal. I want for all of your people to know, like, yeah, she does a thing. Well, she went on these podcasts and absolutely killed it. Had multi 5-figure contracts, did like, I think it was like 60K 1 month, not just from podcast guesting, but like all together, killed it. Her first year in business. And I was like, hey, sis, remember me? Now that you've actually used our program on the kind of base level, let's take this up a notch and we'll actually help you with your content. Like, don't even worry about that. And she's like, you know what? You're right. and I sold her into the second tier. But it was only because she was able to come in, and I didn't try to push her to that second tier initially. She came in at that lower tier, killed it, saw the value, and was like, "Yeah, I'll up my engagement. And furthermore, I'll refer people. I'll come on your master classes and talk about how awesome the service is." Right? Clip that too and made that into more content, because that's what you do. Like you said, working smarter about that. So like that does happen, and I think when it does, you want to make sure that you're ready to, like, again, to have a plan for people to move forward in your business.
Yeah, so much gold there. I just don't know which direction to take it. I'm thinking outsourcing, like there's a whole conversation about that, is understanding that when you're ready, you must put this, these things onto other people. You must engage with other service providers to support you and start building your team that way. So I got that from that, as well as the riches of using testimonials. And really not being shy about using testimonials. Too many times I see people ask for a testimonial and then they'll just like maybe sneak it in on the website, but they're not sharing it far and wide like you just described. They're not using it as real content. Pardon?
Oh, it's in my signature. There's a testimonial in my signature. It's on YouTube, and I actually track it with a unique link to see how many people are clicking on it. I track everything also. Uh, so yeah, I listen. The way that I feel about business in this new iteration of entrepreneurship for me is, this is not about me. If I genuinely believe that what I do matters because it will impact the lives of the people that I serve, and I want to serve more people, then I can't operate my business from a place of my own feelings and fears.
Boom, mic drop. Can you please say that again? Because we all need to hear that. Tune in, folks. Write this down.
It's essentially, I don't, when you are thinking about, oh, I can't be on video because it just makes me uncomfortable. Or I hate social media. I can't do social media. I can't. Or, ooh, that, whatever the thing is that is making you uncomfortable, that you are stopping yourself from doing, even though you know you've either seen it work for other people or you know that it would work for you if you just simply did it. I want you to recognize that you are in business to serve. And if you really are in business to serve, if you are really in business to impact those you are called to serve, you cannot allow your emotions and your feelings to lead your business. You have to go 100% all the time. I'm not talking about not taking rest and do all the things. I'm talking about, if you're going to do the thing, if you're going on social media, you shouldn't just like, whatever, I'm just posting this to post it. If you're going to do social media, do it. Track what's working. Okay, this thing is working really well for us. LinkedIn worked really well. So like, yeah, we post on other platforms, but really everything is catered to LinkedIn and how it will show and operate and function on LinkedIn, because that's where we've seen the most traction. We also use articles on LinkedIn. We do lives on LinkedIn. We do DMs, cold DMs, just for like organic conversation, referral network, and to cold, pitch people that we think are perfect for our program. All the things, because we know LinkedIn works for us. I'm not going to do that on Instagram. I don't like social media personally. I would literally never be on social media again if it wasn't for my business. I would burn it. But I understand that my business cannot survive in this environment without me being there, because visibility, when I talk about visibility, that's the place that most people are in, hearing it, talking about it, all the things. And I want to be a part of the conversation because I do intend to build my own thought leadership. And so if you're listening to this right now and there's something that you've been kind of like a little hesitant about because it makes you uncomfortable, or you have a fear of failure or fear of being seen, whatever your fear is, fear of capacity, like, oh, what if this works really well? Well, let's not solve problems we don't have yet, and simply put in the effort to do the work, like fully, right? And so it might look extra for me to have my testimonials in my signature, but if I'm talking to someone who is potentially trying to downsell themselves to like a lower ticket, even though they can afford something else, and they see a testimonial about someone who has done multi five figures, who has done all the things, who has done, don't you think it's going to help them kind of think through, oh, what's possible for me? Right? If I bring someone who is currently in our program on a masterclass that I'm running, even though masterclasses are really uncomfortable for me and I really don't like it and I really, all the things, if I bring someone on to do the hard work for me to talk about what is possible in the program, then I don't have to put all this pressure on myself to like be a magician to take people from I don't know what this is to like, oh, this is amazing. Someone else does that work. So testimonials don't necessarily like make the sale, but if you have the right ones, they can make a difference.
Absolutely. I want to know, do you see a difference between the genders when it comes to this in terms of maybe what the objections are for those of them who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to be the visible one for my business? Is there any gender differences?
I would say the reason for the desire for visibility is different, but I feel very much the same has come as far as like, ooh, I've been in the back the whole time. This is uncomfortable, or I'm not sure what I want to say and how I want to say it. And so we work a lot on brand messaging, in our business, but it's the why. You know what I mean? I'm going to be honest, and this is not a generalization. I'm just from my experience, from the folks that I've talked to, the men typically are like bent on like, I want to be a thought leader. I want to be the fill in the blank of my industry. Like that's their kind of go. Women tend to come and be like, I want to be found easier. Like, I just want to be more visible. It's this kind of like fear of even just like shooting for the stars type of thing. They don't use the same language when talking about their visibility goals. And I'm not a therapist. I don't know why, but that is something I've seen. It's a very different
Yeah.
language that's used.
The answer is in a couple of episodes back. There's been the last probably 3, maybe 4 episodes. If you're listening to this now, listen back to past episodes from other guests. We've talked about this. It's about conditioning and what language is being used with girls from a very young age versus boys. And one in particular is the See Me Be Toys episode with Yana Black. So that hasn't been published yet, Carrolee, so you wouldn't have been able to listen to it yet. But when it does, that's the answer, listeners, to that. And this is another conversation that we're working on, helping society change, parents change. Be mindful of the language you're using with your littlies because it infiltrates their very being, their very self-worth, their very belief in who they are and what's possible for them. And so you're just describing again this manifesting as adults, where women, generally speaking, of course, there's going to be wonderful exceptions, are coming in saying, I think I want this because it's going to make life easier versus I'm going for this because I can.
Yeah. And like the moonshot, like I
Yeah.
wanted the top of and like you said, there are women who are, they'll come in with that same energy, but by and large, like it's not even close. Right.
And what's
Uh,
interesting is we see that as masculine energy.
yeah.
When the women bring that energy, we see it as
Yeah.
masculine energy.
Which, I've been accused of having, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's no judgment around it. We love masculine energy. We need both. It's just interesting that we label it that. Yeah.
I think ambition, yeah, I don't apologize. Yeah, I don't apologize anymore. I think it's at the end of the day, I know why I have the ambition that I have. It's actually rooted in my faith. I don't I don't see my work as just like, oh, I'm getting people on a podcast, right? I see the freedom that happens when someone finds the power in their voice. It's
Mhm.
very similar to when someone finds the power in God and the trust that's there. and really kind of digs into who they were created to be, that is a beautiful experience to me. And that is beyond podcast or social media or any kind of like vehicle to that. And so that's really what matters to me, is that freedom. That's really what the Currency of Visibility podcast is sneakily about. People will come in for business strategy. They'll come in for, oh, okay, teach me how to like use social media to make money and blah, blah, blah. But what they're going to get, because that's like the core of not only who I am, but the mission that I feel like I have, is the challenge on how do I begin to free my voice fully. And your previous guest talked about it a little bit, but this idea of just not trying to play nice and truly kind of just, as they say, stand on business, stand 10 toes down, however you want to frame it. um, find the power and the freedom and just completely being yourself everywhere, including online. It is incredibly difficult. And I think more so for women, and more so for women of color.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you mentioned, conditioning kind of teaches you that that's dangerous to do.
Yeah.
And especially in this political climate, it's literally dangerous to do in some cases. Right? So, how do you find the strength to do that, anyways?
It's
So,
so much empowerment needed, right? You need to be able to feel empowered to be your true authentic self
yeah,
and to step into that. It's not easy. I
it's
think
not.
it's the hardest thing to do because you have to drop the masks. Yeah, right? And there's years of masks being put up. So,
Oh my gosh.
100%.
There's parts of it you don't even know you're masking. Like, it just feels like it's a part of your. It's like, no, you're not. I thought I was quiet for the 20 years of my life. Sis, what? Because I like wasn't when I was in Jamaica as a kid. I was precocious. I was in everybody's business. I was always talking. I was a teacher's pet. I had a whole bunch of friends. I was this kind of very social person, and I came to the United States, and from being bullied and just not necessarily wanting to stand out because I was scared again of like being, oh, you're different. Like, for whatever reason, that became the boogeyman of all boogeymans. And so I just wanted to feel alike. And for years and years and years, I pushed myself into this little tiny ball, almost invisible. Like, I really wanted for you like to just not even notice me. Here's the problem. All of this was in there anyways. So at any point in time that something was like, not right, it just like it was burning in here. And so eventually, like, the mask that I had worn for so long of this like going to get along kind of person, I'm not. It started cracking. And then eventually I was like, well, I can't, now that like 60% of the mask is gone, I now had to fight to take off the other 40. That's a lot more kind of caked on there, right? It's the safety blanket of, well, they'll like me if I stay here, right? I'll have more people who will say positive things about me if I don't take this little piece off. If I just continue to, and my mask is not 100% off right now. I can be super honest about that, right? Because corporate America did a whole number on me. Okay. And I'm still, and there's trauma and there's all kinds of stuff that, we all kind of go through. There's a part of me that is still worried about people's feelings, and not in like because we're supposed to care about people's feelings, but in a way where it stops me from living in my truth fully. And I'm in a season of like completely like deading that. Because I think the world deserves to meet me fully. And I think the world deserves to meet all of us fully. And what a world it would be if we all just simply were ourselves and not the version of ourselves we think would be the most accepted in society.
I want to live in that world.
What a world.
I want to live in that world. And I think as women, as we rise up, as we
Same.
step into our power, as we step into our authenticity, we are going to create that world. It's time to build a better world, build better businesses, and empower each other and ourselves. And I think this conversation is going to do just that. And I'm like, whew, a little emotional. I don't even know where that came from, but no, I know exactly where it came from. That came from that beautiful sum up you just did there of exactly who you are, who you want to be, and who you want to help. And I just want to thank you, like honestly, genuinely from the depths of my heart for the most amazing conversation today. Carrolee, you are amazing. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being honest and vulnerable and deep. And yeah, I hope us island girls can connect in real life real soon. Yeah, yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very much for today.
Oh, that would be amazing. I'll hold you to that. I'll show up and remember, like, hey, remember you said. Thank you guys.